So welcome everyone, and before we start today, let's just first read the opening aspiration. If anyone would like to read it out loud for all of us, that would be nice.
With boundless compassion and wisdom, I will work for the welfare of all. May we be free from hunger and discord and have joy and a world at peace.
Thank you. So today we have to continue with verse 11. Now so what we are mostly reading is, of course, The Heroic Heart, which is a commentary by Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo on all these 37 verses or practices of a Bodhisattva. But she also has recommended and also has quoted and taken into account another book on these 37 verses, another commentary, which is The Heart of Compassion by Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, another master who she highly recommends. So I thought that today we can also take up a little bit from that book. Although Jetsunma has quoted that book, little passages we have seen in Heroic Heart book also. But I think still there is a lot in the other one also, which somehow is nice to read and go through. Because whatever we read, somehow it acts like acid and tries to kind of purify our being. So we will try to read uh, something today from that another book. I don't have a scan of that, so I'll be reading and maybe we can just meditatively listen, but that will do later. So today I was thinking that before we get on to the verse, I'll just share with you a response to a question. Jetsunma responds to a question where she shares about when we have very strong emotions, some kind of overwhelm like anger, jealousy, hate, attachment, clinging, grasping, some kind of agitation which is there, then how to go about it. So she is responding to that question, and I thought I'll just share like 2 minutes of a thing. So we start with that and then we go to the verse. I'll just bring it up. Yes. Yeah, so I hope everyone can see it and also hear when I play.
Point is to be in a state of seeing it as it arises, knowing it, because normally what happens when we have strong emotions, especially clinging or aversion, we get swept along by it. So the important thing, therefore, is to be able to step back and watch when, for example, the attachment and the clinging arises and name it, right? Attachment, clinging, and see it, not just see the feeling it gives us inside, and what we can learn from that grasping, which, as you said, causes disharmony and problems and so forth. So, the point is not to try to get rid of it so much as to see it and see that even in that grasping and clinging, the essence is still empty, right? It's not something solid. Normally, when these feelings come up, we grasp at the grasping. if you see what I mean, right? We get attached to the attachment. So instead of that, to say, aha, attachment, right? And to really look straight into it. What does it feel like? How is it? Then we begin to see it's like thick black clouds, which when you keep looking at them, they just disparate. Where have they gone to? Because behind it all is the clear blue sky. So not to be afraid of these feelings, but to use them to really understand the nature of these feelings, right? It doesn't, in themselves, they are just fabrications of the mind. They're not solid and real and something, heavy, right? Like these black clouds, they, if you really look at them, after a while, they just disappear. So don't worry about it, right? Just use it as a way of beginning to look at our deep emotions and how much the ego has to play with that, because it's all about me and my grasping and my attachment and my aversion. And so that's what we've got to look at.
All right, so that's what I wanted to begin with. Now we have verse 11 that we started with, and the verse 11 is this in front of you. All suffering without exception arises from desiring happiness for oneself, while perfect Buddhahood is born from the thought of benefiting others. Therefore, to really exchange my own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So before we continue where we last stopped, let us just participate in a little bit of maybe listening meditation. I'll also be listening, although I'm reading it out. It's a long read, if I may, but just catch whatever maybe is beneficial to you. We don't have to gather everything, we can't actually, but let's see. So whoever gathers whatever, maybe that's what is the takeaway for us. So before this we had done verse number 10 actually. Now yeah, so I'm just going to read a little bit of commentary from the other book of verse 10. I'll read the verse 10 also, and then I'll come to verse 11. So verse 10 was about bodhicitta of intention, that to have good intention. And it says, if all the mothers who have loved me since beginningless time are suffering, what is the use of my own happiness? So with the aim of liberating limitless sentient beings, to set my mind on enlightenment is the practice of a bodhisattva. So here we had understood and read and reflected upon that uh, if beings around me, I want to benefit them. Now the best way to benefit them is I should know what is the best way to benefit them. And I would not know what is the best way to benefit unless I myself am not liberated from the darkness of ignorance. So because of that motivation that I would like to benefit the other beings, whether my children or people around me, or say, my siblings or spouse or whoever is close to me, I want to really benefit them. I don't want to harm them. So let me, because of this intention, work towards my own awakening and be released from this knot of ego, because as long as I'm in the knot of ego, I would not be able to do the true benefit. That is what was the intention. Now I'll just read a little bit of commentary. I hope we can concentrate the mind and listen a little bit. The absolute nature of everything is primordially pure, free of all conditions and beyond any concepts of existence and non-existence. But within relative truth, self and others, suffering and happiness manifest in infinite ways. These appearances are devoid of any true existence, yet beings believe them to be true and thus wander deluded in samsara. The bodhicitta of intention or of aspiration has two aspects: compassion, which is directed towards beings, and wisdom, which is directed towards enlightenment. Neither aspect by itself, neither the mere wish to benefit beings or nor the mere wish to attain enlightenment, expresses bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is like an awakened mind or heart. On the one hand, if you do not aim at attaining ultimate enlightenment, then however strong your wish to be benefit other beings may be, you will never go beyond ordinary kindness and compassion. On the other hand, if you wish to attain enlightenment for your own sake alone, you will never go beyond the limited nirvana of the Hinayana practitioners. Both aspects, which is compassion and wisdom, are indispensable. The infinite number of beings who, in your successive lives, since time without beginning, have been your parents and have loved you and cared for you to the point of being ready to give up their own lives for your sake, it would be heartless of you to forget their indescribable kindness and to ignore their suffering. And it would thus be heartless too to practice the dharma for your own liberation, ignoring the bondage of others. Are you really going to abandon all these beings immersed in so much suffering? A son who is prosperous and happy and lives comfortably and eats good food, while his parents go about in rags, destitute, hungry, and with no roof over their heads, would be seen by everyone as a figure of shame and contempt. But is that any different from failing to care for all beings of the six realms who have been your loving parents at one time or another? If you harbor such self centered attitudes and do not strive for the happiness of others, you will be a figure of shame for all great beings and will have strayed from the path of Mahayana. Mahayana is the great vehicle that I don't only take care of myself, but I also want to take care of others. Yeah, now he says, yes, I'm missing the parts which are maybe not uh, very, very technical parts I'm missing. Yes. So he now gives some points, three supreme points he gives. Start with an attitude based on the bodhicitta. In other words, the wish to to undertake the practice to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. So bodhicitta is an awakened mind or awakened heart where my intention has become pure. Ignorance is still there. I still don't know what is the best way. But the intention has become pure that no, I don't want to cause harm to any being around me. I want to do them good. So there he shares the first point, the start with an attitude based on the bodhicitta. In other words, the wish to undertake the practice to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Now यहाँ पे हम देखेंगे कि many a times ego clashes happen amongst our family, relatives, or spouse and children and workplace. Lots of clashes, disharmony happens. Now, when we look at that disharmony, we see that how nice it would be that if we were not suffocated in this ego consciousness so that we would not have those clashes. Now, when I look at that and I look at myself also, that how much in me also, how much the ego brings suffering and how much my ego causes suffering to others. When I look at that, then my practice becomes a little bit stronger. That no, I want to attain liberation from this knot of ego. I don't want to remain there because it doesn't bring benefit to anyone around me and it causes a lot of disharmony in me also. So that is the first point that he makes, that it motivates us. It gives us kind of motivation for practice. Second point, while you are engaged in the main part of whatever practice you are doing, be free of concepts and distractions. So pinpointedly focus ke saath we continue with whatever little practice we are doing. For some, it may be Kriya Yoga, for some, it may be Raj Yoga, for some, it may be integral yoga, whatever practice we are doing. It doesn't matter, infinite ways of reaching the same thing. He says, remain focused, free of concepts and distractions. Third, at the end, conclude the practice with a dedication. Now, dedication means what we do also in the end of our own sessions, where whatever good I may have accumulated through my individual practice or this collective reflection and whatever that we do, reading, may it be distributed to all the sentient beings, near and far. May the benefit of this practice not only remain with me, but also be shared, because just like how I suffer, so many beings suffer. So, whatever little peace I may have today, whatever little kind of understanding, clarity of the mind I may have today, may it all be shared with limitless sentient beings. I don't want to keep it just for myself, because then again it is grasping at the self. Yes, Chetna, you want to share something?
I have a question here.
Yes.
What do you mean by sanctioned beings?
Sentient
Like,
beings are beings who have consciousness.
okay. I
So,
mean, I was like, like who sanctions them?
sanctions the
Otherwise,
sentient, Sentient. Sentient,
okay. Oh, who have consciousness.
who have
Okay.
consciousness. Yes.
Okay. So that means they could be in body or not in body, but if they have consciousness. Okay.
Yes, they have.
Okay. Okay.
Because anyone who has consciousness suffers.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
take every, चाहे वो creature है, whether it's an animal, little creature, plant, all things that are conscious, we take all of them into account.
Yeah. So this includes plants, animals, it would include
Since everything has consciousness.
consciousness. Yes. Okay. I just want to share in Sikhi also we have, like, after any kirtan or any program, we have this thing called ardas, which is prayer, which is at the end of any. So in that there is a line that we always say, which is very important, which is Nanak naam chardi kala tere pane sarbat da pala. So it basically means, like, similar. It means that as you recite the name of Nanak, may may the entire universe progress, like benefit of the entire universe, like
Exactly.
sarbat tapala, like goodwill for all,
Yes,
basically.
exactly. In Hindi also we have this Tera Mangal, Mera Mangal, Sabka Mangal.
Yes,
That,
absolutely.
yeah.
So in Sikhism, it's like after every kirtan, every darbar, this line has to be said. Like, this is a tradition that this line is a must. Like it's the same thing. After you read or pray, this line is like you're dedicating it to the goodwill of all. And even I read somewhere, like, recently, a quote from the mother which said, goodwill from all and goodwill for all, like, as one of her uh, like instructions to humanity. And even Auroville was built on this theme of goodwill for all, right? I mean, that to me seems, what I've read, to me seems the central theme of Auroville, that goodwill for all.
Yes, very true. अब आप देखो ना ये it's so easy to use the word goodwill, but it is so difficult actually, truly, in our heart, because when we have disagreements with each other, when we have agreement with each other, of course, easy to have goodwill, right? Because you are in my party. But when we have disagreements with each other, which will remain since we are all working on ourselves and imperfect beings, so disagreements will remain. We are not yet supramental. So when we have disagreements, even then, not telling everyone that, oh, see, I have goodwill for you in my heart. No. Inwardly having actually goodwill for that other person who you may be at discords with. It's a very challenging task because it brings the ego down. And the ego is not ready to come down. So easier said than done, and it's a very challenging. That is why the book is called The Heroic Heart, because it actually requires a lot of heroism to let the ego go, to disidentify with the ego, and to have goodwill in the heart, whether the other person is a friend or an enemy, or may agree with me, is mad at me, is angry at me, is hateful towards me. It doesn't matter, but I have goodwill. So yeah, it's very challenging.
Yes, I agree. Even for me, I have found myself struggling so much with this because in moments when things are not going your way or the other person is not acting like you want, it is so frustrating within oneself because then one encounters anger, jealousy, everything within oneself, and one has to really like the struggle within goes on, like it's very very hard in those moments.
Bilkul. There is this line in Savitri, a few lines where Sri Aurobindo says, uh, there is a hidden foe lodged in the human breast. And then he shares a couple of lines below it comes, this is the inner war without escape. So this enemy is lodged within our hearts, the ego consciousness, this appearance of a separate self, which is me, and how others are against me and not agreeing with me, and not respecting me and not loving me. So this hidden foe is not outside somewhere; it is lodged in our breast. That's what he uses the word, and that is what we have to rise against or fight. Inner war. It's a challenging task, but we all do it gradually. So yeah, now we come to back to our verse number 11 that we were reading, the reflections and commentary of, that all suffering without exception arises from desiring happiness for oneself. This we will have seen in our own life. While perfect Buddhahood is born from the thought of benefiting others. Therefore, to really exchange my own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of a Bodhisattva. So, we were discussing last time the practice of Tonglen. It's a very difficult practice, maybe for beginners at the time, but as we become more convinced in the practice, then we really love it. We want to do it more and more. And in Tonglen, as we were sharing last time, that it depends upon inhaling all the suffering. May all the suffering of my enemies, because even my enemies, they have burning in their hearts, they are raging in their hearts, they are not very peaceful. People who may be discords at us, or angry at us, or having hate or jealousy or whatever, not very kind to us, they are not very peaceful themselves. So they are burning in their hearts. So may all that suffering and non-peace come to me, and may they have peace and clarity of mind and heart. So last time we were discussing this practice, and it's a very beautiful practice. If we try to do it, it really changes something in us. So where were we? Maybe here, I don't know. Exchange my happiness. Yeah, this we were doing, and redirecting. Yeah, we can maybe start from here, because this much I remember that we had touched upon. So let us take after Tonglen, in the Tibetan tradition, coming from Lojong lineage of Atisha. Anyone would like to read? Please go ahead.
In the Tibetan tradition, coming from the Lojong mind training lineage of Atisha, Tonglen is the important practice of giving and receiving. In 8 verses for training the mind, Langri Thangpa also advocates this practice. In brief, directly or indirectly, may I give all help and joy to my mothers, and may I take all their harm and pain secretly upon myself. All help and joy to my mothers. By now, this idea should be familiar to us as we discussed it at length in verse 10. Because we've been cycling endlessly through samsara since beginningless time, at some point, all sentient beings have been our mother. In Asia, people love and appreciate their mother, even if their mother was not especially nice. The mother was given as the example of the one person that we really wish would be free from suffering and be well and happy. We can extend that feeling of warmth and caring to all sentient beings because at some point or other, we were in that same intimate relationship with them. That is the idea. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
When Langri Thangpa says directly, he means that if we are with somebody who needs help, we help them right then and there. We help them ourselves directly. Indirectly means that if we are not actually in their presence, which is true of most sentient beings, we can nonetheless do meditations focused on wishing them well and happy. Meditations on loving kindness and on compassion. In that way, we send out good wishes to all beings so they are indirectly affected by our wish for their well-being.
Yeah, thank you. So again, this continues, and this now she talks about. I think we had maybe seen a video clip also about the practice of Tonglen, where Jetsunma describes this practice herself, and this actually is again that coming from nearly that video only, uh, where she shares about this practice of like a vacuum cleaner sucking up all their suffering and visualizing suffering in the form of a black light of smoke and pollution. It goes down into the heart, the center of the chest, and forms into a little black pearl. So, if you remember, we had heard this talk by Jetsunma, where she talks about that black pearl which is lodged in our heart, what Sri Aurobindo says. And this dust and fume from all the beings, their suffering comes into that black pearl, and kind of it actually breaks that apart. So that black pearl is our ego consciousness, represents the self-cherishing mind, this me. The egotistic mind doesn't want other people suffering, however sorry we may feel for them. So this again I think continues the Tonglen part. Visualize this dark light of others' suffering coming into ourselves and dissolving into that little black pearl of I-ness, deliberately inviting the suffering with the wish, I will take it on myself, which crushes our self-cherishing attitude. Then, as the dark light transforms into the pearl itself transforms into a diamond and shines brightly, representing our own true Buddha nature, the pristine nature of the mind, which can never be polluted by suffering. Yeah. So this again, we have to practice. Without practice, we would not know its effectiveness. Yeah. So let us maybe take a short while to put it into practice. For those of us who may be inclined, not all of us may be inclined, and say for 5-6 minutes, And whatever in our life we may be having people who are suffering at the moment, we may have our own self not very happy in this moment, it doesn't matter, but we now actually focus right now not on ourselves, and even if we can't see other people suffering in our life, maybe we can look at how I am suffering in my whatever little phase of life that is going on. I suffer, and using that suffering to connect with innumerable beings who are suffering exactly like me, because they are in this condition exactly where I am. So now I realize their suffering. Now I know how much misery this kind of a condition brings. So both we can do. Either if we have pain, we have suffering right now, then we use it to connect with all the other people who are suffering like that, and we get in touch with their suffering, their pain. That is what we will inhale. And if we ourselves are relatively at ease and not suffering, then we look at others in our life who are unwell and not very okay. They're suffering, they have pain, emotional, mental, whatever kind of pain. And inhaling their suffering and taking into the center of our chest, letting it come, that dark cloud. And when we exhale out, we give them uh, as if we are giving them white light or bright light of peace and happiness. So I would not, now I've already told what to do, so we'll not use any words. We'll just do for 5-6 minutes this practice. And if we get lost again, if we lose our track, again reminding ourselves that I was inhaling the suffering of others, either who suffer like me or are suffering in their own places. Let that suffering come into the center of my chest like a black cloud. Let it come. And when we exhale, let the white light or bright light of peace and happiness, and visualizing those beings as very healthy, happy, and peaceful. So, this we will do for 5 minutes. Let's do it for 5 minutes. Yes,
I
Chetna?
have I have a question
Haan,
here.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm asking too many questions
That's okay.
today.
Please go ahead.
So with this practice, I have a question. I mean, I have had an apprehension or a question. It is that when we inhale the other suffering, okay, that is the first step. But when we inhale it, after that, what happens in us? Because like I'm very sensitive, so I will actually feel it like within me, like a pain in the chest. And then what does it happen? I mean, what happens within me is I want to ask, like, how do I transform that within me? Because I don't want that
Of course.
thing
Yeah, so
to
we are not
remain stuck
stopping.
in my consciousness.
Bilkul, bilkul, bilkul. We are not stopping at the inhale.
Yes, okay,
We are
okay.
doing another step also, which we may be forgetting, which is the exhale.
We are exhaling white light to them, right?
And you do not have to visualize this, that the white light is not, see it, the white light is coming from you.
Hmm,
So how is it
hmm,
possible that
hmm,
you yourself has have black light or darkness and you are giving out? It is not possible. So
hmm,
in the first step, you take in all the darkness in the center of your chest, and
yes, I got it.
that transforms you, and you become full of white
Okay,
light, which you give away, because how can you give away
right,
white
okay.
light if you don't have the white light,
Yes, yes.
right?
So, yeah, yeah. So that step I wanted to ask just to make sure that it is being transformed. Like before I give away, do I say something? Do I do something within me so that it is transformed?
Yes,
And like
yes,
I just
yes.
want to be.
Bilkul, bilkul, bilkul. And if you get to notice a little part of you who is very apprehensive of what would happen of me if I suck in all the suffering.
No, actually, I'm okay with the first part. It's just I want to learn the second part correctly so that it gets
See,
transformed within
correctly,
me.
we may not get it in the first. half.
Yeah.
But it's okay, we will get trained as we do it. And there is
Yeah.
nothing that you can do wrong. There is, it's not a tantric practice that भैया किसी को frog बना दिया गलती से, ऐसा नहीं होने वाला. So it's a very compassionate practice, and it cannot do harm to you. Just be very sure about that. It cannot do harm to you. It's not black magic, right? It is magic, but not black magic. So as we practice, we become trained in it, and also the little bit of fear or apprehensions that are there in the starting, they kind of dissolve and disappear.
With the practice.
Yeah. With practice, we get to know, and maybe you don't resonate with it. So after a couple of rounds, like maybe 10 rounds or 20 rounds, you realize that no, I don't think I resonate with it. That's also okay. So we are just experimenting with what we are reading. So all is okay. All is welcome. Yeah, any more questions before we go ahead? Okay, so let's, for 5 minutes, we will do this practice of the instructions have already been shared. We can also visualize those of people in our life we may have maybe right now a disagreement with or clash with. They are not agreeing, but we know that how much we suffer when we are in that space. So visualizing their faces and taking in all suffering from them, may they not suffer. And then we exhale, and we have the visualization that may they have the true happiness and the causes of true happiness. Taking in the center of our chest all their suffering, darkness, taking it all in like a vacuum cleaner takes it in, without any fear or apprehension, just taking it all in. And with the exhale breath, visualizing them as peaceful in their hearts and easy and progressive. all the beings who suffer because of desire, clinging, grasping, attachment, anger. We know they are suffering because we have suffered our own selves. It is not a nice place to be. So may all the beings who are right now suffering because of that suffocation and narrowness, may all their suffering come to us in our heart, center of our heart. And when we exhale, lots of bright light, peace, wisdom, and clarity to all the beings. May they not suffer. If there is a person who you are worried about, concerned about, that too we can take. So Tonglen practice is a very beautiful way to open our hearts. Our hearts are very closed generally, and I have observed that we really become very easy, and there is a feeling of wholeness and interconnectedness and opening of hearts whenever, even for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, however we can do it, in whichever way. And we will intuitively guided our own way about this practice. So that is not a problem. We all may have a different way of doing it, and we will evolve in the practice as we do it. So I have seen that when, say for example, there is a disagreement, and and somehow there is an understanding that nobody can be happy in a disagreement, though both parties suffer. So if I am suffering, the other one is also suffering. So it opens our heart when we take the other in account, and we say that okay, the other person may be at discord with me, he may be right now hating me, being jealous with me, or whatever, being angry at me. Let his suffering come into me, and let lots of peace and ease in the heart go to that person, and that too secretly. So there was this word mentioned, secretly, because when we are doing it secretly, then the ego is not claiming it, that see, I am the one who is responsible for making you happy. We are not claiming, and the other person may not know uh, of the effects or whatever the prayers, and but we want to do it because it gives us also a lot of opening of the heart. It is beneficial for both the parties. So any question or concern here for the practice?
No, it was very beautiful. And yeah, I think it's what we inhale, that is what gets transformed and goes back as white light, right? To them. That is very beautiful. I mean, yeah, thank you.
Also, that most of the time, as we were reading in the verse before this, that we run towards my happiness, that I should be happy, I should be content. But actually, the things that we do in our ignorance make us actually get hell because of that. So the more we crave for my own contentment and my own happiness, which we are doing all the time, it actually brings that running brings us more misery. So in this, right now when we are doing Tonglen practice, there is a self negation, like let me not worry about myself for these 5 minutes. So that also I think brings a lot of relief, because for those 5 minutes you are not concerned about your own self, what would happen of me. The intention is to benefit being. And that also magically somehow, as Mother says in prayers and meditations, that the moment our attention is not on us, it solves the problem. And then we realize that the problem was that my attention was too much on myself. And that's what Jetsunma was sharing in the video that we saw in the beginning, that everything is focused around me, 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 me. Whenever we are suffering, we will see that things are focused around me. And right now, when I'm doing Tonglen, I'm not focusing around me. So I think that's also maybe adding to the niceness of the practice. Yeah. So yeah, this let us just go through these lines again, because I feel that they are very revelatory in nature. So this more deliberate and focused practice of Tonglen has many different applications, but in general it is based on love and compassion. Here is the practice. This is what we were doing. This I already read. So let's go through it again once more. Imagine someone who is suffering in any way. They could be actually present, or we can just think about them or use a photo. On the incoming breath, visualize drawing in dark light, rather like a vacuum cleaner sucking up all their suffering, including the causes of their suffering, present and karmic. Visualize drawing in their suffering in the form of black light or smoke and pollution. This goes down into the heart, in the center of the chest, not the physical heart, and forms into a little black pearl that represents the self-cherishing mind. The egotistic mind doesn't want other people's suffering, however sorry we may feel for them. This is the mind thinking, well, I'm really sorry you are sick, but I'm glad it is not me. Or, this is a very good practice, but I hope it doesn't really work. Although we are sorry for the other's suffering, we don't want to take it on ourselves. So then visualize this dark light of others' suffering coming into ourselves and dissolving into that little black pearl of I-ness. Because the last thing I want is somebody else's problem. Deliberately inviting the suffering with the wish, I will take it on myself, which crushes our self-cherishing attitude. Then, as the dark light transforms into the pearl itself transforms into a diamond and shines brightly, representing our true Buddha nature, the pristine nature of the mind, which can never be polluted by any suffering. It is eternally blissful and healthy. It cannot be anything else. It is the unconditioned, and that is never polluted by the conditioned. Then she continues that our true nature is endless well being. So, as soon as the small black pearl of self cherishing disappears, we discover our true nature, which has no problems. Then we breathe out clear white light, representing all our boundless wisdom, compassion, good health, good karma, everything good within us. This light is sent out with the breath, and we visualize it melting into the person, present or imagined. Visualize every cell of their body soaked in light and being healed, so that they are completely happy and at ease. With the in-breath, we take in darkness. With the out-breath, we give all our bright healing qualities as clear light. Yeah. So, anything here? Anyone? This is I feel that this is, I mean, one has to really practice it. I am really in awe with this practice, because at times it happened that since I'm forgetful, and because of that forgetfulness, we again sink into that some problem that I am having with another person, or my life is not moving the way it should move. The focus comes on me, and then we again begin to suffer. And the moment I realize, oh, I'm suffering again, and like this, when I'm so focused on myself, I suffer. How many beings, limitless beings, suffer like me? And then again we do that practice and chew mantra. It's actually like chew mantra. It's gone, really. We have to do it for ourselves and then see how it works. Otherwise, of course, all words. Yeah. So any last comments or questions or concerns? Or sharing? Okay. So now maybe time for a moment of silence before we leave. Just whatever individual or collective merit or prasad we may have, sharing it with all the beings near and far. May we not have suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be taken away from each one of us. And may we have true happiness and also the causes of true happiness. May our delusions be removed. May our ignorance be removed. And whatever little peace we may be feeling at any instant of time, if we become aware of that little ease and peace that I am feeling today, the moment I see that peace in me, share it. That just right now, how easy and peaceful I feel. I share this peace and ease with all the limitless sentient beings. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and happy practice.